This podcast is produced by the Portland Press Herald and sponsored by the Berlin City Auto Group. Experience easy, only at Berlin City.
Hi, this is Greg Kesich at the Portland Press Herald, and I'm the editorial page editor, and I'm here with Sarah Collins. And Sarah, what do you see in the comments this week?
A lot of the commenters had a lot of opinions about things I wish I had been doing last week instead of working, like going out to eat and going to the beach. The proposal by restaurant owner / chef Kara Stadler to raise the tip minimum wage and end tipping at her restaurants brought people out in force. Most of them agreed with her, said that she had it right, that when you're a tipped worker, everybody's your boss, and that tipping's nothing but a way for restaurants to pay less than minimum wage, says Shark 616, and should be ended ASAP. But a reader named Adam Romero jumped in and quickly became the center of attention when he said he makes 200 to 250 hours per 10-hour shift with tips delivering pizza. Said the majority of tipped workers don't pay taxes on most of our tips. That's just the reality. I consider that non-taxed money my fair pay.
Most people thought he was lying, and it's also, he's incorrect, right? That is totally taxable income.
Right. He says the IRS considers pizza drivers lower wage earners. The IRS doesn't have the time to come after thousands upon thousands of drivers not paying taxes. And it's the best dead-end job there is. He says, done it for 18 years, pay market rate rent, don't take welfare, drive a 5-year-old Volvo, and buy about $400 a month of marijuana to pull me through long days working a fast-paced, thankless customer service job. I have to laugh at friends who've been out of college for over a decade, barely getting by on their worthless degrees in things like psychology, arts, education, and music.
He also talks about his European travel in another one of the comments. He says how bad the service is in restaurants in Europe, which is not bad on a pizza delivery guy.
Exactly.
Tip wage, yeah.
But commenter Bob Rossi responded that he's dined often throughout Europe, and no way is the service there subpar, unless you consider subpar to mean that the server doesn't act like he's your long-lost best buddy.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I mean, it's part of the minimum wage referendum that's going to be on the ballot in the fall. And one of the things it would do is eliminate or phase out the tip credit, so that workers who work in the front of restaurants would get a higher hourly wage. And there's a lot of debate about whether it's going to wipe out tipping. And I'm still waiting for the argument that tells me why tipping is important, besides it's the way we've done it for a long time.
Right. It seems to be the way we've done it for a long time because it allows restaurant owners to shunt some of their responsibility for paying an equitable wage onto the customer. And I think customers like it because it gives them a little bit of control over their server.
So what else you got?
Our editorial about the court ruling on Harpswell beach access. A lot of people thought that we were off the beam, that
it happens.
Shockingly, that private property is a sacred thing, that people who own private property have the right to keep people who don't own it off that property, which I don't think we disagreed with. The whining continues from the Portland Press Herald and others who see no reason why they can't enjoy the fruits of someone else's labor. I think basically our point was that you can't depend on private property owners to guarantee public access to land, that more land needs to be open to the public because change of ownership means that all of a sudden the new owner posts the land and you can't get to the beach, you can't get to the hiking trail, you can't get to the snowmobile trail.
Right. We weren't advocating making private owners make their land available. That's certainly their choice. What we were talking about was having public access guaranteed by some public ownership of important pieces of land. And sometimes people miss the point.
It often happens in long comment discussions. They quickly veer away from what they're commenting on and just respond to the most recent post by one of their fellow readers.
Yeah, right. Sometimes I wonder if we wouldn't save a lot of time if we just put some topics up there and just said like abortion, Hillary,
right,
and let people
guns
make the comments that they want. You see anything else?
Yeah, moving on to the way Greg Kesich spent his free time last week, which is the Republican National Convention. pretty much every single politically related column or letter, somebody managed to get in a comment about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or both. Had a pretty well-liked letter about the need to deport the plethora of what the reader sees as the plethora of criminal immigrants. And a reader named Funverzig said that the extreme leftist ideology of the street activists from Chicago, now in the White House, is being carried out by his would-be successor in the garish pantsuit, who brands any man or woman who dares to dissent or express deep concern as bigoted, racist, xenophobic, and Islamophobic. Obviously worried about Hillary Clinton's fashion expression there.
And it brings up this sore point we hear all the time, that any mention of race is racist. People don't want to talk about race, particularly. I'm assuming that that's a white person. They feel very uncomfortable talking about race, and any time anybody mentions any kind of racial bias, they accuse them of being racist. So it's
that it's actually worse to be called a racist than it is to be the focus of racism.
Or yes, or it's a form of racism to be identified as somebody who supports racial inequality.
Right. Moving away from the convention, the chicken pox. Press Herald returned to a topic that we've touched on a lot, the need to keep the public informed of outbreaks of infectious diseases. It returned to the news because the Maine CDC issued a rule stating that that would make it more difficult for the public to access that information and easier for the CDC to justify keeping a lid on it. The commenters actually responded to this editorial with some public policy suggestions. They traded information on how to reach the LePage administration and expressed their comments on the proposed rule. Apparently the deadline is today, Monday, July 25th. The only dissenting voice was, how is the Press Herald going to freak us out and get us to forget that chickenpox is a relatively benign childhood disease if it doesn't have the data? Just wanted to let MGH Maine know that I had chickenpox for 3 weeks when I was 12, and I can only imagine what it's like to get it as an adult.
Let's hope MGH doesn't stand for Maine General Hospital.
No kidding.
Thank you for listening to the Portland Press Herald podcast. The Press Herald podcast is now available in iTunes. Visit our website at pressherald.com, and you can also email us at podcast@pressherald.com.